Hey everyone, welcome to Anime Dreams, a place where imagination reshapes the stories we love. Today's fanfic explores a powerful twist on a familiar legend. What if Naruko mastered every technique of Jiraiya? From sage arts to forbidden jutsu, we're diving into a version of the story where skill, strategy, and legacy collide in ways you've never seen before. Expect intense battles, unexpected growth, and a completely new path for our protagonist. Disclaimer: this content is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any anime footage used in the videos. All rights belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, let's begin. Naruko looked around the small village she and her teacher had just entered. Like many places in the Fire Country, the buildings were made of warm wood and sturdy bricks, arranged in neat rows with flat rooftops and simple shapes. Shops lined the streets, their windows filled with colorful fabrics, tools, and trinkets. People wandered about cheerfully, pausing to admire the displays or greet neighbors. It had only been about a week since Naruko had left her home village of Kanahagakure for this journey, yet already everything felt new and full of possibility. She glanced up at her tall teacher, Jiraiya, who walked beside her with a thoughtful expression. "So what are we going to do here?" Naruko asked, her voice calm but curious. Jiraiya looked down at her, raising an eyebrow. "Patience, Naruko. Every place we visit has something to teach you, sometimes it just takes a little time to see what it is." Naruko gave a small nod. She had changed a lot since leaving home. Once, she might have rushed ahead, full of loud excitement. Now, she walked more quietly, noticing details she had overlooked before, the way sunlight danced across rooftops, the hum of busy streets, the gentle rhythm of life in each village. "I have someone to meet here," Jiraiya continued. "After that, we'll begin your training in earnest." "That sounds good," Naruko replied simply. Jiraiya studied her for a moment, noticing her thoughtful tone. She seemed more focused now, as though she had discovered a new determination within herself. He smiled faintly but said nothing more. Soon, they parted ways for a short while. Jiraiya headed toward his meeting, and Naruko wandered through the village streets on her own. As she walked, her thoughts drifted. She thought about her time at the academy, how she had often chosen fun over focus. Back then, she wanted attention more than anything else. But now, she understood that becoming strong meant more than just being noticed. It meant learning, practicing, and growing every day. "I want to do better," she murmured softly to herself. Naruko paused in front of a shop filled with neatly arranged clothing designed for travelers and shinobi alike. She looked down at her own outfit, bright and familiar, yet not quite suited for the journey she wanted to take. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she smiled. "If I'm going to grow," she said quietly, "I should start acting like it." With that, Naruko stepped inside the shop. The interior was warm and welcoming, with rows of neatly folded garments in many colors. There were also shelves holding tools and supplies, everything a young ninja might need on her journey. Naruko walked slowly through the aisles, taking her time. Each item felt like a choice, a small step toward the person she wanted to become. She wasn't in a hurry anymore. For the first time, Naruko felt that her journey wasn't just about getting stronger, it was about discovering who she truly was, one thoughtful step at a time. Naruko began by looking at different kinds of pants. She preferred darker colors, thinking they looked neat and practical. After carefully comparing styles, she chose several pairs of dark blue cargo pants. They had many pockets, perfect for holding small tools or scrolls, and the fabric felt strong and long-lasting. Next, she moved to the shirts. She picked out a mix of dark blue and black ones, choosing both sleeveless and long-sleeve styles so she would have options for different days. She smiled softly, pleased with her thoughtful choices, before looking around to see if there was anything else she might need. Soon, she added a few more useful items: a pair of black fingerless gloves with smooth metal plates on the back, sturdy black boots with reinforced toes, and a sealing scroll to carry everything easily. When she reached the counter, an elderly shopkeeper greeted her kindly. Naruko placed her items down, and he carefully counted them. "That's quite a selection you've chosen, young lady," he said warmly. "The total comes to 4,000 yen. Naruko reached into her pocket and pulled out her small frog-shaped wallet, Gama-chan. She opened it and checked her savings. Though she didn't always show it, Naruko had learned to be careful with money. She counted out the amount and handed it over with a polite nod. "Excuse me," she said respectfully, "is there a place where I can change?" "Of course," the shopkeeper replied, pointing to a small changing stall tucked in the corner. "Thank you," Naruko said with a grateful smile. Inside the stall, she changed into one of her new outfits, choosing a sleeveless shirt for comfort. She looked at herself in the mirror and nodded happily. Everything fit just right. She sealed the rest of her clothes neatly into the scroll. Stepping outside, Naruko created a shadow clone and asked it to go find Jiraiya and let him know she was going to get some food. As she walked through the street, she found a cozy food stand filled with delicious smells. After looking over the menu, she chose a warm bowl of gyudon. Sitting down, she began to eat, enjoying every bite. A few minutes later, Naruko blinked in surprise. Suddenly, she remembered everything her shadow clone had experienced while searching for Jiraiya. She paused, thinking carefully. This had never happened to her before, or perhaps she had just never noticed it. As she continued eating, she wondered if this special ability could help her learn faster. Maybe she could train in a new way. She decided she would ask Jiraiya when he arrived. Before long, Jiraiya joined her at the stand. He greeted her with a calm smile and ordered a simple bowl of ramen. After a few quiet moments of eating, he spoke. "We'll stay here tonight," he said. "Tomorrow, we begin your training." Naruko nodded, then added thoughtfully, "I noticed something interesting. When my shadow clone disappeared, I remembered everything it did." Jiraiya raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "So, you discovered that on your own?" Naruko tilted her head slightly. "You already knew?" He chuckled softly. "Of course. I was waiting for you to figure it out." Naruko smiled, not upset, just curious. "Do you think I can use it to train?" Jiraiya thought for a moment. "Yes, I believe you can. With your energy, you could learn in weeks what might take others years. But you must be careful. There are limits, and using it too much could be tiring." Naruko listened closely as he explained everything in detail. She felt excited and hopeful. A new path of learning had opened before her, and she was ready to walk it, step by step, with patience and determination. 1 month later. Naruko breathed steadily as she finished another set of push-ups, her palms pressing firmly against the warm ground. She had been training for nearly an hour, and although her arms trembled a little, her eyes shone with determination. It had been a full month since she learned the shadow clone technique, and her progress felt like a bright sunrise after a long night. Every day, Naruko created hundreds of clones. Half of them practiced graceful movements from a style Jiraiya had been teaching her called Haming Tori no Ken, or hummingbird style. It focused on speed, balance, and gentle precision, like a bird fluttering between flowers. The other clones worked on chakra control, which she found tricky but fascinating. Some of her clones would carefully walk across the surface of water, balancing smooth stones and tiny tools on their fingers. It required patience, focus, and a calm heart. Naruko often imagined herself as part of nature, steady like a lake and light like the wind. Meanwhile, the real Naruko trained her body. Every morning she woke up early and followed a strict routine, a long run, followed by push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and more. Each week, she added a little more, inspired by her hard-working friend Rock Lee. She admired his dedication and wanted to grow strong in her own way too. As Naruko began her sit-ups, a voice called out from nearby. "Naruko. Come here for a moment." She looked up and nodded, finishing her set before jogging over. "Yes, Jiraiya-sensei?" Jiraiya studied her carefully. "I want to know what's on your mind," he said gently. Naruko blinked and looked away. "It's nothing, sensei." He crossed his arms. "You've been quieter than usual. You're working very hard, which is good, but something's bothering you. You can tell me." Naruko hesitated. Then she sat down, drawing her knees close. "I've just been thinking," she said softly. "When I was younger, I didn't really get to learn properly. I missed out on a lot. Back then, I tried to get attention in silly ways because I didn't know how else." She looked up at the sky. "Now I want to change. I want to truly learn, to grow, and to become someone I can be proud of." Jiraiya listened carefully, his expression softening. "I understand," he said. "And I'm proud of you for wanting to improve. But remember, growing strong doesn't mean rushing. Even the tallest trees take time." Naruko smiled faintly. "I know. I just don't want to fall behind anymore." Jiraiya chuckled warmly. "You're not behind. You're on your own path. And I'll help you every step of the way." Her smile grew brighter. "Thank you, sensei." "Now," he said, pointing back toward her training spot, "go on. But don't forget to rest too." Naruko nodded and ran back, her steps light and full of energy. Later that day, they arrived in a nearby town. The streets were lively, filled with chatter, colorful shops, and the comforting aroma of food. Jiraiya stretched his arms. "I've got some work to do here," he said. "You can explore, but stay safe, alright?" Naruko placed her hands on her hips with a playful grin. "I'll be fine, Uro-sensei." Jiraiya sighed at the nickname but smiled anyway. "Just don't cause trouble." "I won't," she said. "I might look for some ramen and maybe do a little more practice." "Sounds good," he replied before heading off. Naruko watched him go, then turned toward the town with curious eyes. This place felt warm and welcoming. She took a deep breath and smiled. "All right," she said to herself. "Let's see what today brings." And with that, Naruko stepped forward, ready to learn, explore, and grow, one small step at a time. Instead, she looked around at all the people. Even though she had been away from Konoha for over a month, seeing others smile at her rather than glare felt new and surprising. Naruko was not quite sure how to react, but every now and then she returned a smile with a small, careful one of her own. As she wandered through the streets, something else caught her attention. She passed several groups of girls her own age. Wanting to be kind, as she always tried to be, Naruko offered them a friendly smile. To her surprise, the girls reacted in two ways. First, many of them blushed. Second, they gathered closer together and began giggling while glancing her way. Naruko tilted her head, puzzled. She did not have much experience with other girls outside of training and the occasional lively interactions back home. She could not quite figure out what their giggles meant, but they did not seem unkind, just mysterious. With a thoughtful hum, she continued walking, now focused on a much more important mission, finding a place that served delicious ramen. After several minutes of searching, she finally spotted a small stand that looked just right. She stepped inside and hopped onto one of the stools. At the sound of her arrival, the chef turned around with a welcoming nod. "What will you have, kid?" Naruko studied the menu carefully, tapping her chin. I'll have 5 bowls of miso ramen, 4 bowls of chicken ramen, and 2 bowls of beef ramen to start." The chef blinked in surprise, then smiled in amusement. "That is quite an order. Are you sure you can eat all that?" Naruko straightened proudly and gave a confident grin. "Of course. I wouldn't ask for it if I couldn't." The chef chuckled and got to work. Some time later, after many empty bowls and a very satisfied Naruko, she stepped out of the stand feeling full and cheerful. The chef waved goodbye, clearly pleased, while Naruko noticed her coin pouch felt much lighter than before. Still smiling, she continued her stroll through the city. She planned to find a quiet place to practice later, but for now, she enjoyed exploring. As she walked, she noticed she was receiving more of those curious looks from other girls. It made her feel proud in a way she could not quite explain, but also a little shy. She shook her head and focused on the shop windows instead, peeking at various interesting items. Just as she leaned closer to one display, she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she found a girl about her age standing there. The girl had long light brown hair, bright green eyes, and a warm, friendly smile. A soft blush colored her cheeks. Naruko hesitated, unsure what to say, but she remembered to stay polite. "Can I help you?" From behind the girl, Naruko heard quiet giggles. She glanced slightly to the side and saw a small group of girls watching them with interest. Naruko's instincts told her something important was happening, though she was not sure what. The girl smiled a little wider. "Actually, my friends and I were wondering. Would you like to go shopping with us?" Naruko blinked once. Then twice. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. No one had ever asked her something like that before. "What?" she said softly, just to be sure she had heard correctly. The girl giggled kindly. "I asked if you'd like to go shopping with us." Naruko felt her cheeks grow warm, and she was certain she must look very red. The girls nearby giggled again, though their laughter sounded friendly and light. For a moment, Naruko considered running away out of pure nervousness. But then she thought about how she had never really spent time with others her age just for fun. Maybe this was a good opportunity. She took a small breath, then smiled brightly, her most cheerful, heartfelt smile. "Sure. I'd love to go with you." For a brief moment, everything was quiet. Then the girls' eyes lit up with excitement, and their giggles grew even brighter. Naruko had a feeling her day was about to become much more interesting, and perhaps, much more fun. Naruko wasn't quite sure how her day had turned into such a whirlwind, but before she knew it, she was being gently tugged from one shop to another all across the village. A cheerful group of girls had invited her along, and though she didn't fully understand how it happened, she found herself happily swept up in their excitement. Instead of shopping for themselves, the girls seemed more interested in trying on different outfits and asking Naruko what she thought. One by one, they would step out in colorful dresses, cozy sweaters, or bright scarves, twirling and laughing as they asked for her opinion. Naruko had never been in a situation like this before. She scratched her head, her cheeks turning pink as she tried to find the right words. Sometimes she would open her mouth to speak, only to pause and nod awkwardly instead. Other times, she managed a small "it looks great," before quickly looking away, feeling shy. To her surprise, the girls found her reactions adorable. They giggled and chatted even more, asking her friendly questions and complimenting her kindness. Naruko wasn't sure what to do with all the attention, but she smiled anyway, doing her best to be polite. Just as she was starting to feel a bit overwhelmed, something unusual caught her eye down the street, a large cloud of dust moving quickly toward them. Naruko and the girls paused to watch. Out of the dust came her teacher, Jiraiya, running as fast as he could, followed by a group of very determined villagers. They weren't angry in a frightening way, but they were clearly trying to catch him and make sure he listened to their complaints about his silly behavior. Naruko blinked in surprise. Sorry, everyone, she said, gently slipping free from the girl's arms. It looks like my teacher needs a little help learning how to behave better. With that, she dashed off, leaving behind a small trail of dust of her own. She found Jiraiya a short distance away, sitting on the ground and looking a bit tired, though otherwise unharmed. Naruko placed her hands on her hips. "Sensei," she said firmly, "you really should try to act more responsibly. People will trust you more if you do." Jiraiya rubbed the back of his head and gave a sheepish smile. "Ah, Naruko, you always know how to say the right thing. Maybe you're right." Naruko softened her expression. "Come on. Let's go somewhere quiet. You can tell me what you were trying to do, and maybe we can figure out a better way together." As they walked side by side, Jiraiya began to explain his ideas, this time in a much calmer and more respectful way. Naruko listened carefully, asking questions and offering thoughtful suggestions. By the time they reached their room, the two of them were laughing about the day's events. Naruko stretched her arms and smiled. "Today was definitely strange. But I think I learned something." "Oh?" Jiraiya asked. She nodded. "Whether you're helping friends pick outfits or helping a teacher make better choices, it's important to be kind, honest, and patient." Jiraiya chuckled. "That's a lesson even I can learn from you." Naruko grinned brightly. It had been an unexpected day, full of surprises, but in the end, she felt proud. No matter what adventures came her way, she knew she could face them with a good heart and a determined spirit. The next morning found Naruko at the village library, surrounded by tall shelves and soft sunlight filtering through the windows. She sat at a wooden table with a thoughtful expression, a small stack of books beside her. The night before, her teacher had given her a long and confusing lecture about growing up and understanding people. Some parts had made her feel puzzled, and others had simply raised more questions. Naruko decided that instead of feeling overwhelmed, she would learn things properly, step by step, in her own way. So there she was, reading books about kindness, friendship, emotions, and how people care for one another. She even picked up a few gentle romance stories, hoping to understand how trust and companionship worked. "If I'm going to grow," she whispered to herself, "I want to do it the right way." She smiled, turning another page. 6 months later. Naruko stood barefoot on the surface of a quiet lake, the water rippling gently beneath her feet. Across from her stood her teacher, watching with a proud but playful grin. "Ready?" he asked. Naruko nodded, her golden hair tied back neatly. "Always." They began their practice, moving lightly and carefully. Their training wasn't about hurting each other, it was about learning balance, focus, and control. Naruko dashed forward, her movement swift and graceful. She tossed a few practice tools, not to strike, but to test her timing, while guiding a gentle gust of wind to carry them faster. Her teacher stepped aside easily, as expected. Naruko smiled. She had planned for that. In a blink, she reappeared closer, her feet barely making a sound on the water. She tried a light strike, which her teacher blocked, but she quickly shifted her stance, flipping neatly and landing with a soft splash. "Good," he called out. "You're thinking ahead now." Naruko beamed, then formed a few careful hand signs. A swirling wall of water rose around her, not forceful, but smooth and controlled, like a protective dance. From it, she shaped a flowing dragon made of water, its form elegant and shimmering in the sunlight. "Go," she said softly. The water dragon glided forward, guided by a gentle breeze she created. It wasn't meant to harm, just a challenge. Her teacher leapt aside, laughing. You've really improved. The water splashed harmlessly back into the lake, sparkling as it fell. They continued like this for a while, moving, learning, adapting. Naruko used her wind, water, and even tiny sparks of lightning in careful, controlled ways, always focusing on precision rather than power. Eventually, her teacher surprised her with a clever trick, gently catching her off balance and holding her in place, not tightly, just enough to signal the end of the round. Naruko blinked, then sighed. Before breaking into a grin. Okay, you win this time, she admitted. Her teacher chuckled, helping her back onto her feet. You've come a long way in 6 months, he said. Your strength, your focus, your creativity, it's all growing. Naruko looked out over the lake, her reflection shimmering in the water. I still have a lot to learn, she said. And that's the best part, her teacher replied. Learning never stops. Naruko nodded, feeling a warm sense of excitement. Let's rest for today, he added. Tomorrow, we'll visit a nearby town. Maybe even take on a small mission, something to help others. Naruko's eyes lit up. Really? That sounds amazing. She gathered her things, already imagining the adventures ahead, not just becoming stronger, but becoming someone who could help, protect, and bring smiles to others. As the sun began to set, Naruko felt proud, not just of her progress, but of the path she had chosen. And she knew this was only the beginning. Hey, Uro-sensei, Naruko said softly as she sat beside the warm glow of the campfire, her golden hair catching the light like a gentle flame. She held a skewer of roasted vegetables, turning it carefully as the night breeze whispered through the trees. What is it, kid? Jiraiya replied, leaning back with a thoughtful look, though his usual playful grin lingered. Naruko hesitated, then spoke with a quiet sincerity. I've been wondering. Do you think it's possible for me to bring Sasuke back? Jiraiya didn't answer right away. The crackling fire filled the silence as he watched her, noticing how her bright, cheerful energy had softened into something more reflective lately. I'll be honest with you, Naruko, he said gently. Even if you could bring him back, it might not turn out the way you hope. Naruko looked down at the fire, her blue eyes flickering with its light. People have their own paths, Jiraiya continued. Sometimes, they need to walk those paths on their own to understand who they are. Trying to pull them back before they're ready might only make things harder, for them and for you. Naruko's shoulders lowered slightly. So, you're saying I should give up on him? Jiraiya shook his head. Not give up. Just trust that someday, he'll find his way. And in the meantime, you keep moving forward. That's what strong shinobi do. Naruko sat quietly, letting his words settle in her heart. She didn't like the idea of letting go, but she understood what he meant. After a moment, she nodded. I think I understand. A small smile appeared on her face, brighter than before. Then, can we keep training longer? I want to get stronger. Really strong. Jiraiya blinked in surprise, then smiled warmly. Of course we can. I was hoping you'd say that. Naruko grinned, her usual spark returning. Good. Because I'm going to become the greatest shinobi ever. That night, as she lay under the stars, she made a quiet promise to herself, to grow stronger, kinder, and wiser with each passing day. A few days later, Naruko sat cross-legged at a small wooden table, staring at a completely blank sheet of paper. She sighed. I can't believe I agreed to this. Behind her was a memory she couldn't forget, the moment she had made a bet with her teacher. Flashback. Naruko stood with her arms crossed, tapping her foot impatiently. Uro-sensei, you really need a better hobby. Jiraiya rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I told you, it's research. Research for what? Naruko replied, raising an eyebrow. Because whatever it is, it's not helping you write better books. Jiraiya gasped dramatically. My books are amazing. Naruko smirked. I bet I could write a better one. Oh? Jiraiya leaned forward with a grin. Care to make it interesting? Naruko thought for a moment, then nodded. Fine. If my book does better than yours, you have to focus only on training me, and tell me about my father. Jiraiya paused, surprised by her request. But after a moment, he gave a slow nod. All right. You've got a deal. They shook hands, sealing the bet. Flashback end. Naruko stared at the paper again, then tapped the pen against her chin. A story, huh? She murmured. Her eyes slowly brightened. Well, I guess I'll just write something from the heart. She picked up the pen and began to write, a small smile forming as her thoughts turned into words. Because Naruko Uzumaki believed in something simple but powerful. Every story, just like every person, had the chance to grow into something wonderful. Naruko tapped her pencil against the page and let out a long sigh. This is harder than I thought, she murmured. Having fun, brat? Naruko turned and saw Jiraiya standing behind her, wearing a wide, teasing grin. She frowned, crossing her arms. Not a word, she warned. Oh, I wouldn't dare, Jiraiya said, leaning over her shoulder anyway. Look at all this writing. At this rate, you'll have a masterpiece in no time. Naruko narrowed her eyes. You're making fun of me. Maybe a little, he admitted. Writing takes patience. Even more than training. Naruko huffed, stood up abruptly, and walked away. Behind her, she could still hear Jiraiya chuckling. Later that evening, Naruko sat by a window in a quiet tea house, watching the lantern sway gently outside. She held a warm cup in her hands, thinking about her travels and everything she had seen. Writing it all down felt important, but finding the right words was another challenge entirely. May I sit here? A soft voice asked. Naruko looked up and saw a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She wore a beautifully patterned kimono and carried herself with quiet confidence. Sure, Naruko said, brightening. I could use the company. The woman sat down. Thank you. It's rare to find someone who looks like they'd enjoy a real conversation. Naruko grinned. I try my best. They introduced themselves, and Naruko learned the woman's name was Aiko. She was a trader from a distant land known for its beautiful seasons and clever inventions. Naruko listened with genuine interest, asking questions and sharing stories from her own journey, carefully leaving out the parts about being a ninja. Aiko laughed often, clearly enjoying Naruko's cheerful spirit. You're a good listener, she said. That's a rare gift. Naruko scratched the back of her head, a little embarrassed. I just like hearing people's stories. Time passed quickly, and before they knew it, the tea house was closing. Oh dear, Aiko said, standing carefully. I may have stayed out longer than I planned. Naruko noticed she seemed a bit unsteady. I can walk you back to your inn, she offered. Just to make sure you get there safely. That's very kind of you, Aiko replied. The night air was cool, and the streets were quiet as they walked together. When a few rough-looking strangers appeared nearby, Naruko calmly guided Aiko to a different path, keeping her voice steady and reassuring. Don't worry, she said. We'll take a safer route. Soon, they reached Aiko's inn without trouble. Thank you, Naruko, Aiko said warmly. You've been a wonderful companion tonight. Naruko smiled. I'm glad I could help. Aiko hesitated for a moment, then said, You know. Your stories sound like the beginning of something special. You should keep writing. Naruko blinked. You think so? I know so, Aiko replied. Naruko looked down at her notebook, then back up with a determined smile. All right. I'll keep going. As she walked away from the inn, Naruko felt lighter than before. Maybe writing wasn't just about getting everything perfect. Maybe it was about sharing pieces of her journey, one story at a time. And with that thought, she hurried back to her room, ready to fill the next page. Naruko let out a soft groan as sunlight streamed through the window and tickled her eyes awake. She blinked slowly, realizing she was in an unfamiliar room. For a moment, her heart fluttered with surprise, but she took a steady breath and tried to remember. The last thing she recalled was walking Aiko home after a long evening of talking and laughing. The memory made Naruko smile. Just then, she heard a gentle sigh and felt someone shift closer, as if seeking warmth. Looking down, she saw a tousle of messy black hair resting against her shoulder. Aiko was curled up beside her, fast asleep. Naruko's cheeks turned pink as she remembered how the two of them had stayed up late, sharing stories, dreams, and quiet moments of friendship until they had both drifted off. Good morning, Aiko-chan, Naruko said softly, hoping she hadn't woken her too suddenly. Aiko stirred, rubbing her eyes before looking up. For a second, Naruko worried she might be upset, but instead Aiko smiled warmly. Good morning, Naruko-chan, she replied. Last night was really nice. Naruko let out a small sigh of relief and grinned. Yeah, it really was. The two shared a light laugh, the kind that comes easily between friends. After a while, Naruko stretched and realized she should probably head back before her teacher noticed she was gone. Before leaving, she decided to do something kind. With a bit of clever thinking and a few helpful tricks, She tidied up the room and then made breakfast. It wasn't anything too fancy: eggs, toast, and a glass of orange juice, but Naruko put care into every step. She had recently discovered that she loved cooking, and it made her happy to share that with others. Aiko's eyes lit up when she tasted it. "This is amazing," she said. "You're really good at this." Naruko scratched the back of her head, smiling shyly. "I just like trying new things." After breakfast, they thanked each other for the lovely time and promised to meet again soon. With that, Naruko made her way back to her hotel. When she arrived, she found her teacher fast asleep, surrounded by scattered bottles and papers. Naruko shook her head with a small chuckle and quietly moved past him. Sitting down at her desk, she picked up a blank sheet of paper. For some reason, her thoughts felt clearer than ever. Ideas began to swirl in her mind like bright, dancing lights. Humming softly, she started to write. When the world feels heavy and shadows grow long, a gentle light appears in the sky. With wings of hope and a heart full of song, she guides us forward, helping us try. Naruko paused, reading her words with a thoughtful smile. Writing felt right. Like she was discovering a new part of herself. 2 months later. "I can't believe it," her teacher muttered, eyes wide with astonishment. Naruko crossed her arms with a playful grin. "Believe it, Uro-sensei. You lost. But, how did you improve so much?" he asked. Naruko tapped her notebook proudly. "Practice, creativity, and a little bit of heart." Her teacher sighed dramatically, but Naruko could see the hint of a smile on his face. As she looked down at her writing, Naruko felt a warm sense of accomplishment. She wasn't just growing stronger, she was discovering new ways to shine. Naruko's book had just been published a little over a week ago. She had titled it Loveless and proudly brought it to her mentor, Jiraiya's publisher. After reading what Naruko had written, the publisher decided to release it to the world. What happened next surprised everyone. Within just a few days, the book spread across the lands like a bright morning breeze. People everywhere were reading it, sharing it, and talking about it. It even became more popular than all of Jiraiya's books combined. Naruko blinked in disbelief when she heard the news. Jiraiya stared at the sales numbers, scratching his head. "How is this possible?" he muttered. "No silly jokes, no outrageous scenes. And still it's winning hearts." Naruko crossed her arms with a playful smile. "A deal's a deal, old man." Jiraiya sighed dramatically, but a small smile tugged at his lips. "I suppose I should never underestimate a determined girl," he said as he handed her a sealed scroll. Naruko tilted her head. "What's this?" "It's from your father," Jiraiya explained gently. "He asked me to give it to you when the time felt right." Naruko's expression softened. She carefully opened the scroll and began to read. As her eyes moved across the words, her emotions shifted like clouds drifting across the sky. Her lips trembled, and tears began to form, not of sadness alone, but of something deeper. Something warm. Jiraiya watched quietly, unsure of what to say. He wasn't very good at moments like this, but he stayed close, just in case. I need a little time," Naruko whispered. She held the scroll close and slipped out of the room, heading to a quiet place where she could think. Later, in her room, Naruko sat by the window, reading the letter again. It was written by her father, Minato Namikaze. The letter was full of kindness and care. He had written about how happy he and her mother, Kushina Uzumaki, had been when they learned she would be born. He had left her special tools, notes, and guidance, not as commands, but as a gift for her future, something she could learn from in her own way. But more than anything, he had left her words. Words of love. Naruko pressed the letter to her chest. "He believed in me," she whispered. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but this time they felt lighter, like rain that helps flowers grow. A soft voice came from the doorway. "He always did." Naruko looked up to see Jiraiya standing there, his expression calm and sincere. "He prepared that for you long ago," Jiraiya continued. "He wanted you to have something that would guide you, even if he couldn't be there himself." Naruko looked back at the letter. Her heart still felt heavy in places, but there was something else now too, understanding. "I don't think I can figure everything out right away," she said quietly. Jiraiya nodded. "You don't have to. Some answers take time." Naruko gave a small smile. "But I do know one thing." "What's that?" Jiraiya asked. She stood up, wiping her eyes. "I want to keep moving forward. I want to grow strong in my own way, and make something good out of everything I've been given." Jiraiya smiled warmly. That sounds like a wonderful plan. Naruko looked out the window, where the sky was glowing with the colors of sunset. For the first time in a while, she felt steady. Her story wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about what she would choose to create next. Look here, Jiraiya said, standing up and narrowing his eyes at Naruko. I wanted to take you with me. I even begged Sarutobi-sensei to let me take you away from the village. I pleaded with him, but he wouldn't budge. He said he wanted you to build bonds with the people of the village. I told him it would take time, but he believed in you. Jiraiya took a deep breath and softened his voice. Sitting back down, he gently placed a hand on the young girl's shoulder. If it had been my choice, I would have taken you with me, he continued kindly. But it wasn't. And it's not like I didn't come to see how you were doing. Naruko looked up, her blue eyes still watery, but calmer now. What do you mean? Who do you think gave you that little wallet? Jiraiya asked with a small smile, pointing toward the seal where she kept Gama-chan. Naruko blinked in surprise. You gave it to me? I thought it was from the old Hokage. Jiraiya shook his head. If it were him, he would have handed it to you himself. Then why didn't you? She asked softly. Jiraiya sighed, his expression thoughtful. There were rules I had to follow. I wasn't allowed to meet you directly unless it involved helping with your training. But even from far away, I kept an eye on you. I wanted to make sure you were growing strong and smiling. Naruko rubbed her eyes, brushing away the last of her tears. Then, slowly, a bright smile appeared on her face. I guess I'll just have to fix all those rules when I become Hokage someday, she said with cheerful determination. Jiraiya chuckled warmly and ruffled her hair. That's the spirit. But you won't become Hokage by sitting around feeling sad. Naruko laughed a little. Crying hadn't helped much, but talking had. She felt lighter now, like a cloud drifting away after the rain. Oh. What about my mother? She asked suddenly. Jiraiya nodded. From what I understand, she left something for you too. It's waiting at your home in the village. Naruko placed a hand over her heart and nodded. Then I'll read it when I return. It'll be something to look forward to. Good, Jiraiya said with a grin. Now that you're feeling better, it's time we continue your training. Naruko stood up energetically. Right. 3 months later. Naruko stood in a wide open field, watching dozens, no, hundreds, of her shadow clones practicing all around her. Some were carefully shaping tiny sparks of lightning, others were guiding streams of water through the air like dancing ribbons. She had been working very hard, learning how different elements could come together like friends helping one another. To her, it felt almost like painting with nature. Nearby, another group of clones practiced graceful movements with wooden training swords. Naruko had started learning how to handle a blade, not for harm, but as a way to improve her balance, focus, and coordination. She liked imagining the movements as part of a flowing dance, like wind moving through trees or water gliding over stones. Her very own sword rested at her side. It was carefully crafted, with a swirling design that reminded her of her name and her spirit, bright, strong, and always moving forward. A third group of clones sat under a tree, reading books or playing strategy games. Naruko had discovered that learning new things was just as exciting as training her body. She read about history, plants, teamwork, and even how to grow a small garden. I want to understand everything, she often said. That way, I can help everyone someday. Naruko looked down at a set of notes in her hand. There was one special technique she had been trying to understand, not because she wanted power, but because it reminded her of her father. It was something she wanted to learn carefully, step by step, like solving a puzzle. Just then, Jiraiya's voice called out, Hey, Naruko. Time to pack up. She turned and waved, her clones beginning to disappear in soft puffs as they finished their tasks. We're leaving? She asked, walking over. Jiraiya nodded with a smile. You've been training hard for a long time. Now, it's time for you to learn something new, experience. Naruko tilted her head. So we're going somewhere together? Jiraiya shook his head gently. Not this time. You'll be going on your own little journey. On my own? She repeated, surprised but curious. I have something important to take care of, Jiraiya explained. But this is your chance to explore, learn, and meet new people. You'll discover things that training alone can't teach. Naruko thought for a moment. She felt a tiny flutter of nervousness, but also excitement. I think I can do it, she said, smiling. Jiraiya nodded proudly. I know you can. Naruko looked ahead, imagining all the places she might see and the friends she might make. So, she asked brightly, where am I going? Jiraiya grinned. Somewhere you can grow even more. The Toad Sennin handed Naruko a carefully sealed mission scroll. The parchment felt important in her hands, as though it carried not just words, but a story waiting to unfold. You'll be heading to Kiri, he said gently, his usual playful tone softened with care. The village is going through a difficult time. Your role is to help bring understanding and support where it's needed most. Naruko unrolled the scroll and read it with focused eyes. The details were clear. She would meet her allies at a quiet rendezvous point and assist a group working to restore harmony. There was even a small code word included, just in case she needed to identify a friend in unfamiliar surroundings. As she finished reading, she closed the scroll thoughtfully and handed it back. The Toad Sennin nodded and used a small flame technique to safely turn the scroll to ash, letting the wind carry it away. I'll check in on you from time to time, he said. Just to make sure you're doing all right and to pass along anything helpful. Remember to take care of yourself, okay? Naruko smiled brightly, her confidence shining through. Don't worry, Uro-sensei. I'll do my best. With that, she adjusted her headband and looked toward the horizon. She didn't see a place of conflict ahead, she saw an opportunity to help people, to listen, and to bring light where it was needed most. As she set off on her journey, Naruko felt a quiet determination in her heart. She believed that even in the most uncertain times, kindness, patience, and courage could guide the way. And with that, we've reached the end of today's journey. If you've made it this far, you're not just watching, you're part of something bigger. Every view, every like, every share is not just support, it's a signal that these stories, these moments, and this passion truly matter. This channel isn't just about content, it's about creating a space where imagination thrives, where every frame tells a story, and where every subscriber becomes a part of this growing world. There's a lot more ahead, new ideas, deeper stories, and content that will keep evolving with you. So if you enjoyed what you saw, don't just stop here. Stay connected, stay inspired, and be a part of what's coming next. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Your support means everything and keeps this dream moving forward. Thank you for watching, for supporting, and for being here. Regards. Anime Dreams.